Today's guest is Khang Nguyen Trieu, a Singapore-based tech leader with 25 plus years across Europe and Asia, and two-thirds of that specifically in travel and hospitality. He served as APAC CAO and Group Chief Technology Architect at Accor Hotel Group, overseeing technology across 40 brands and over 5,500 hotels, helping modernize complex asset-light hospitality model. Khang now leads the way forward, mentoring tech leaders in the age of AI. He's also a director at Hawath Asia, standing up the technology practice to drive digital and AI transformation inside hotels. Khang, welcome to Future Travel.
Hi, Robert. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Super happy to be here today.
So, that's a very impressive background. Maybe just provide the audience a little bit more color on like sort of your journey and how you got into hotels and maybe technology, and just warm it up like that.
Yeah. So on my side, I would say my background is very much into technology because from my education and then in all my professional career, I've always worked in tech. And I first started in travel and hospitality back then when I was in France. And at that time, after 6 years of working in different tech consulting companies, I decided to join a company which was then called voyagesncf.com, which was one of the biggest OTA at that time in France. And I stayed there for 12 years and I really enjoyed, even if it's online travel, so you don't get to travel every day, but at least on what you make people travel. And I did like it is that industry. Fast forward in 2016, with my family, we decided to move to Singapore. And I didn't, from an opportunity perspective, it was not into travel and hospitality that I landed my first job. But still, it's something that I still really liked. And then a few years later, I had the opportunity to join the Accor group in Singapore. And I did not hesitate at that time. And that's how I kind of went back into travel and hospitality. And I think I love the two parts. I'm very tech not by nature, but by education and by background. But I'm also very, I would say, a kind of people-oriented person. And hospitality is really in this industry where you can have a really good people relationship on the ground.
All right, great. So let's provide a little bit more additional context to some of our listeners. So people that are new to hotel tech, how would you describe the reality of what's going on property today? What's already digital and what's still manual in daily operations?
Yeah, so if on that, maybe allow me to take just a bit of a step back for the audience to understand actually what is happening in property. For the past, I would say 20 plus years, if you look at all the hospitality industry, there has been a major trend of the big hotel management company to go what we call asset light. So maybe 30 plus years ago, brands like Marriott, Hilton, Accor, etc., they were owning the walls, they were owning the hotels. So in that perspective, when you were doing any projects decided, I would say at a corporate level, then you would just roll out the projects. But then what happened for the past 30, 20 or 15 years was going to this kind of asset light model where Marriott, Hilton, Accor, and the likes, they don't own the hotels anymore, but they are going to provide the brands, they are going to provide expertise into how to manage hospitality hotels, more in the consulting part. So the change that has happened is that all these big hospitality management companies are now more incentivized on what we call the top line of hotels. So to bring more guests, to build more loyalty, etc., to the hotels. They work so they have their contract with the hotel owners. But then if you look at it in the hotel themselves, all these big major hotel companies are not really incentivized to improve the hotel operations. So it is up to the hotel owner and to the GM, the hotel staff, to figure out how to improve things into the hotel, and especially with the help of technology. And so what does it mean? It means that usually what you see being quite advanced in hotel in terms of digital is probably all the guest facing tools, because these kind of tools are still part of the direct mandate of the big hospitality chains. But once you start to look at what is called back of house, so back of house is, for example, housekeeping, is what is happening in the kitchen, is what is happening in terms of admin work around the finance, HR, procurement, etc. All this is still very traditional and a lot of manual tasks which are still existing. And it also depends a lot on, the size of the hotel or the country. So, for example, if you take Asia, in some countries, the cost of labor is very high. So you take a Singapore, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, quite high, and that will push more the hotel to adopt technologies. In some other countries where the cost of labor is still very low, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, etc., then a hotel will be less, I would say, pushed to adopt technology to improve their operations.
Okay. Oh, really? Excellent. There's a lot there to kind of unpack. So before we sort of go into the sort of SME aspect of hotel operations, let's look at sort of the larger group level. So back at your time at Accor, what were some of the architectural or engineering challenges that you came across, especially when you had to manage technology across 40 brands and 500 hotels? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
there's massive problems in doing that. So tell me, what were some of the big challenges that you ran across?
Yeah, so interestingly, when I joined Accor back in 2020, previously all the companies I had worked for, like for example the OTA back in France, were much, I would say, B2C and tech-driven companies. So I had the habit of being able to roll out all the features very fast, to do A/B testing online, all the things that I would say more digital native companies are able to do. I was super surprised when I joined Accor to find the level of fragmentation in terms of solutions in that industry, especially at the hotel level, meaning that from one hotel to the other, from one country to the other, you could find a lot of different tool systems used by used by hotels. And from an engineering perspective, obviously, that's a bit of the nightmare of engineers, because engineers, what they like is more standardization, to have things that are neat, to be able, to secure the system more easily, to upgrade them, and so forth. And here was a very kind of fragmented landscape. And at Accor, I think there was a big push to try to have a kind of common playing ground for all the hotels, at least on the core systems. And that's the same that Marriott, Hilton are doing, is to say, okay, the PMS, the property management system, which is really the heart of the systems in hotel, should we should try to push to have the same version, same vendor actually. Point of sale, trying to push to have the same, and so forth. And as a matter of fact, back in 2020 was not so easy, because a lot of these systems were on-prem in hotel. So on-prem in hotel means also that every hotel owner is not going to upgrade at the same time. Sometimes some of them don't want to pay to upgrade, etc. So one thing that we did to kind of try to simplify and to level up the situation was a big push to cloud, pushing actually as much as possible the solutions in hotel to the cloud, because at least then you get to be able to have a kind of more uniform landscape in terms of software. So that one is more everything that is at least considered as mandatory by hotel chains. And then, as I was saying, there are still a lot of things that are in the hands of each hotel around the back of house, etc., which is still another story.
Yeah, so let's take that a little bit further there. So you mentioned this kind of um, sort of contrast. You have a hotel that may be part of a larger group, but
Mm.
in reality, most hotels operate like small, medium-sized enterprises. So
Yes.
how does that dynamic kind of work in the technology side of
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. So that one is very interesting because you indeed, as you said, you could say, okay, this hotel is part of a very large hotel group. So you would expect that all the technology dynamic, even happening in the hotel, would actually be in the momentum of the big group. But as I was explaining, the business model in hospitality makes that the hospitality group is really going to push just on the systems in the hotel which are critical to improve the top line of the hotel. So the property management system, maybe some guest facing solutions to ensure brand consistency. But for the rest, the hospitality group will not really put a lot of focus. And now, if you look at the hotel, so a hotel in terms of legal structure, but also in terms of P&L, is really at the end SME because a hotel will have its own legal structure that the hotel owner will have set up. The hotel, depending on the size of the hotel, you may have from, I don't know, 10 to a couple of hundred hotel staff, which are under the GM, but really like in a very, I would say, organization of their own for each hotel. And if you look at it, and it's not just hospitality, and I think it's the same across the world. In every country, if you look at the SME across industry, SMEs have difficulties to transform and to digitalize. Why? Because an SME, I would say the CEO of the SME, along with all the staff, they are always super operational, super hands-on, super day-to-day. You don't have, some teams which are going to have the time to take a step back to think about, okay, what is the vision into 2, 3 years time, as you could have in corporate. You don't have also sometimes the luxury to say, okay, well, going to do projects the proper way, to do some business case, then kind of road mapping, then having the right expertise to do project management, change management, etc. All of this when you see, the best practice that big consulting firms could issue to say how to manage your digital transformation. All these kind of blueprint of best practices, they apply very much to big corporate, but they don't apply to SMEs. And hotels are really in that situation in which they are sometimes a bit struggling to see how to have a kind of holistic vision on how to move forward in respect also of their capabilities.
Okay, excellent. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about workflow automations and technologies that reduce workload, allow us
Mm.
to be more efficient. I mean, our company, obviously, we're working with rewards. And so part of our technological architecting, our engineering, our whole approach is around making rewards programs super
Mm.
easy for anyone to stand up, whether you're an
Yeah.
SME or a large group. So if you're thinking about hotels in particular, I know we've been in China before and you see robots like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Mm.
Robots in hotels,
Yes.
cleaning, lots of experimentation. Maybe those were just put out just for me because they knew I was a technologist there coming into the hotel, but probably not.
Yeah.
So where are we exactly right now in terms of robotics or physical automation? Like what
Yeah.
is actually credible today
Yes.
and what is just experimentation?
Right. So in terms of automation, so talking about physical automation, and then we can also have a word on the software automation part. But physical automation today, things are quite advanced. And as you say, I think China is leading the pack. And I think it's interesting to understand why China is leading the pack. I think there is a culture, there is a topic of cultural difference. In China, when you talk, to hotels and to other industries, everything is centered around productivity. And in the West, I would say the Western world, when we talk, people are going to talk about, guest experience, about marketing, etc. And so you see that already there are two different points of focus. And if we look at what is happening in China, indeed, as you were saying, delivery robots are a reality in many hotels, and not just for marketing purpose. It's really to actually reduce the number of hotel staff, and it is working. It is working very well. The one thing that is more challenging for a lot of hotel, I think, in the West and brownfield hotel, meaning existing hotel, often is the topic of lift integration, because you can have lifts which have been there for some years, and actually then they do not integrate well with the robots, for the robots to be autonomous and go through the different floors. I think that's one of the challenge. But otherwise, it's already working well. When we talk about robots, it's not just about robots who move. You can also have kitchen robots, which can also already help a lot in the kitchen, to help on actually preparing the dishes. In the bar as well, you start to have robots which can help actually the barman, barwoman to actually prepare the cocktails. Housekeeping is still something which is a bit far. So that's the dream of hotelier, housekeeping, because the biggest challenge today, the shortage of workforce, and especially for housekeeping. But it is one, even if robots have made a lot of progress in terms of being, human-like from a physical perspective, the next, I would say, step is to plug a kind of brain into robots for them to be able to move into unstructured environment. These robots are already very useful and efficient in warehouse, where things are more or less well organized. In a room where you can have a lot of things that, especially with a family, with kids, which are all over the place, then it's still a work in progress.
I love this topic because we're all staying in hotels and we're all dealing with the same problems. So from like an economic perspective, like how would this, like physical automations with robots and otherwise, from like an economic perspective, how does that work with the hotel?
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned before that they have a shortage of cleaning staff, or most people have a shortage of cleaning staffs. So obviously being able to replace the staff or fully fill out the staff would be useful. But from like an economics perspective, how should we think about that?
Yeah, so I think there are different point of views, I would say. If I go back to the example of hotels in China, the economics is that some of the big players in China, they even have a vision where tomorrow, thanks to automation, physical automation, but also digital products in the hand of the guest, they want to be able to operate 200, 300 rooms hotel with just two humans. So that's where you see the push into productivity, etc., which is, I think, really specific to China. Without going to that extreme, I think that when you talk about using physical robots actually to replace some manual activities, when you talk to a lot of GMs today, for example, in Asia, in Singapore, for example, where there is a shortage and a tension on the workforce, the way that they see it is a bit different. They say, today, with the workforce that we have, first, we don't have enough time to do all the things that we should do. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, they say also a lot of the work, for example, front office for the check-in, they say, unfortunately, things have become very transactional between the hotel staff and the guest, meaning that at the check-in, it's more, hello, can I have your passport? Thank you, here, or here is your key. Hello, can I have your passport? Hello, here is your key. And they are just doing that all the day. And they were telling me, or actually what we would like with digital, with robots, is that actually this kind of transactions do not have to be done by the hotel staff anymore, and they can repurpose the staff, to be more engaged with the guests, and then you can start to elevate the experience and probably be able also to maybe create more loyalty, more repetitive, and also increase the revenue. So I think in that case, the economics, to come back to your question, wouldn't be like in China to be a pure, I would say, saving on hotel staff, but would be a mix of one, you manage to operate your hotel optimally with robots and hotel staff, and the hotel staff is redeployed to actually be kind of bring more added value to the guest and create more memorable experiences so people come back and then also create more revenue. It's part of so I'm working sometimes a lot with actually I'm working quite a lot with the Singapore Tourism Board, and there is in the industry digital plan of Singapore here there is a lot of thinking about the job redesign about in hospitality to also make the jobs more attractive, because that's a hospitality that's an industry which has difficulty to attract people. So it's about redesigning the job, giving more value so that people are maybe better paid. A hotel may need less people at the end than today, but we still need to have people, but more qualified.
Yeah, and then I love that point there that the automation, the physical automation, contributes to the human staff that you have being able to engage in more customer
Yeah,
engagement
yeah, and
type activities. I mean, to
yes,
engender loyalty, to make the overall guest experience more attractive for the hotel.
and
You also mentioned the Singapore Tourism Board, and I think I'd love to touch on a little bit about the Singaporean ecosystem. I was just in Singapore a few weeks ago. I love the experience, like all the integration throughout Singapore is just amazing. Talk to us a bit more about what is that ecosystem looking like? How are the collaborations going on there? What are the objectives that they
yeah,
have, or what are the ideas that they have moving forward? Because I think it's quite innovative.
yeah, exactly, and it's quite unique indeed. Overall, if you look at it, Singapore is a small country, and the thinking of the Singaporean authorities is to say, in the world that we are going into, which is going to be which is more and more dominated by technology, by AI, by robots. Question is for the Singaporean population, what is the future? And the future from the current perspective is to say we need we need to upskill our people, and we don't have the problem of a big country where there are so many people that we don't know what job to give to people, because anyway we are small. So what is important is more that we have people who have I would say upskilled to be able actually to have a good pay and to be at the right level of jobs. And in that matter, what Singapore is doing is that there is a kind of overall vision for Singapore. And then across the industries, every governmental agency, so let's take here Singapore Tourism Board, is going to work on an industry digital plan, saying, okay, this is where we see the industry going, and what should be done. From there, for example, Singapore Tourism Board identified 5 areas of digital transformation that hotel can do to actually improve the productivity and upskill the people. That would be around the topic of contactless check-in, the topic of robots, and so forth. Then you have a unique ecosystem of financial grants to support the industry to transform. And here, that's where I think that's something kind of a unique to Singapore, which is helping the SME ecosystem, is that often we were talking, like how SMEs, they don't have the expertise, the methodology, the bandwidth to think about how to transform because they are very day to day. And with this kind of funding that Singapore agencies are bringing, then these SMEs are able actually to invest more easily into their transformation, and also with the help of different industry players, with something that is going to be partially funded, and with the funding comes also the outcomes that Singapore Tourism Board is expecting. So some ROI to look at, some KPIs to monitor, etc. But that's how actually they manage to accelerate the transformation of SMEs, which without this kind of setup would have a hard time actually to transform.
Okay, great. Super interesting. I love the Singaporean ecosystem for so many reasons. We're about out of time now, so maybe just one or two quick questions. If you let's get if you could automate, let's say, a single workflow, it could be like front of the house or back of the house. If you could automate that, where a payback period of less than 6 months, so the investment returns after 6 months, what would you choose and why would you choose it?
So I think what I've seen in the past few months in terms of workflow to automate with some of the highest payback is around finance in hotel. Finance in hotel is super manual, and you have a lot of things to reconcile between the bank statement, the OTA files, and sometimes you lose money because actually it's a copy paste manual verification, and some teams spend hours on that part. And I've seen some solutions, and actually also integrating loyalty with the finance reconciliation, and on that part I've seen actually some solutions which can really be deployed in a matter, I think, of weeks, and have a payback which I think is indeed below 6 months. And these are usually the quick wins, much easier to put in place than physical robots, because this is about automation between systems that the hotel already used, and then can free also the time of the staff.
Okay, last question very quickly. Following up on that, is there a role that's missing in with hotels to be able to identify and execute these type of quick fixes or these automations? Is there a role that exists or doesn't exist there? And then also, like, further to that point, build in-house or buy packaged up from someone else, or combination? What would be your general approach?
Yeah, so general approach is, so the role does not exist usually. And the thing is that if you look at a hotel like a SME, they are not able to afford to have this kind of role full time in a SME. So that's why, for example, in Singapore, there is a government agency which is pushing the topic of CIO or CTO as a service, to be able to step in and be able then to help whenever needed, and then pull out because maybe you don't need to have this kind of role all the time. And then to your question, buy or build, I think if you look at system inside hotel, that will be probably a lot of buy, because for the same reason, within the hotel, you usually don't have a very large or strong IT capabilities. So starting to build things and then you have to maintain, it's going to be difficult. So it's more a matter of choosing the right solution, the right partner. And one thing which is important, just to finish on that into the hotel, is that a big challenge for hotel is integration. Is when they start to have a lot of systems and they don't talk well to each other. That's where they also need some, I would say, some support to make something that is much smoother to work.
Great. Okay, well, thanks so much, Khang, for joining us. Just lastly, how do people get in touch with you if they want to follow up on some of these issues? What's the best way to get in touch?
The best way to get in touch probably is on LinkedIn. Probably connect on LinkedIn with me. You can find me easily if you type my name, and then get in touch to be able to discuss more.
All right, perfect. So thanks once again, Khang, for joining us on Future Value. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.